Hi everyone. Today's story is about the Tower of Babel. I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but we pick up in Genesis. It's Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. And this story starts and it picks up after the flood and Noah. Who remembers Noah? Here he is. Hi, Noah. So Noah says hi to everybody. So after the flood, the people had to start all over again. We remember that part of the story. Remember, the flood destroyed everything on the earth, and Noah had to build an ark and put his sons in, and his wife and his sons' wives, and two animals of each kind. And so they all got on the ark together for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, Noah's son had large families, and soon there was a lot of people. But sadly, the people kind of forgot what God had asked them to do, had asked Noah to do. God wanted them to move to other places, but they decided to just all stick together in one city instead. And as time went by, they really began to forget about God, and they only started to think about themselves. And they thought that they were awesome builders, great builders. And they were so proud of themselves that they wanted to build something to show how great they were. They wanted to be famous. So they decided they would build a really, really tall tower. I'll show you a picture. This is the tall tower. I'll explain more about it in a minute. So they were going to build this big tower, and I'm going to teach you about the difference sometimes that a word can have. So the word pride, do you know what it means? Because, it can have a good meaning and a bad meaning. So good pride is when you feel really good about yourself because you've done a good job or you're part of something good that makes you feel happy or feel positive about something. So you might feel proud in the way you learned something new at school, or you may be proud of your family, or you may be proud when you go out and do something nice for somebody else without being asked. So God likes this kind of pride. But bad pride is sometimes when you think too much of yourself, too well of yourself. You might think that you're better than you really are. Or you might look down on other people and think that you're better than they are. Well, God doesn't want us to have that kind of pride. That isn't the kind of pride he's thinking of. So the people were building the tower, and they had a bad kind of pride. They were doing it because they thought that they could build something bigger and better than what they could get from God. And they forgot really about God altogether. They never said, "Thank you, God." They thought they didn't need God in order to make this tall tower. So they thought they could do it all on their own. And in fact, they thought so much of themselves that they didn't even think about God very much at all. So finally, God decided he had to put a stop to it. And Noah can remember all about that. Remember with the flood, and they had to get into the ark and stay there for a really long time. And then they had to find dry land again. So he wanted places to think about him and not a tower. And so God wanted them to go to all different places to branch out. That was the whole thing. He wanted people all over the earth. And instead they were all in this little place and they were just together. So God had something really amazing and kind of strange happen. God confused all the people's languages so they couldn't understand each other anymore. So when it started, when God started all this, there was only one language. They all spoke the same language. But lo and behold, when he confused all the languages, they couldn't understand each other. It was just a bunch of strange noises. Nobody, not one single person spoke the same language. So they just heard strange noises like babbling. And that's how we came to get the Tower of Babel. So it really became impossible to work on that tower because if you can't understand each other, and maybe they could do pantomimes or charades and like draw out bricks with their hands and point, but you couldn't really communicate. So they were all mixed up and they had to stop working together. And the town became known as Babel because of all of the different languages and how it just sounded like a bunch of babbling. And everything in the city was so confusing that the people started to move away into smaller places where they could learn to talk together better. So they started to find other people who maybe spoke the same language they did, and they went off in their little groups. So now they stopped having so much bad pride because there wasn't as many of them. but they learned an important lesson about pride. They learned that they weren't all the best, that really God was the one in charge, which is what we've been teaching all along. So here is the Tower of Babel. And I don't know if you can see, but it even shows how they made bricks. Can you imagine? Because today, when we talk about building things, think about it. We have machines and we can order bricks from Home Depot or Lowe's. Here you couldn't. These bricks here, I don't know if you can see them. They're made out of mud. I don't know if we went in the backyard and tried mud bricks if we could get it to work ourselves, but they would have been made out of mud. And they still use this in parts of the Middle East to actually make bricks. Mud and straw, they mix them together and they shape them in wooden molds, and then they let them dry in the sun. I mean, I don't know if they melt with rain again, but it seems like a good idea. But that is the Tower of Babel. And if you can see, there are so many stairs. When we think about things that were built before really the industrial age, before we had machines and all this other stuff, you think about the pyramids in Egypt. It's amazing how they can build so much stuff. So it was kind of a temple tower. And you remember, God doesn't want us to worship false gods or anything. And they built this tower so big, and it was kind of pyramid-like. And they wanted it to lead to a temple at the very top. You can see it. It's all in the clouds. And here the people believed that if they built it taller and taller and taller, they could be closer to the gods. And that is not what God had in mind. That was not at all what he wanted. So that's how we got so many different languages with the people. So we're going to do some activities as well. We're going to make a marshmallow tower. I also have some Legos that I encourage you all to build a Lego tower if you have some stray Legos. Have we been in church together? That's one of the things we're going to try to build, is see how tall we could make our tower. How tall do you think you could make it? Could you make it as tall as yourself? And then there's a whole group of activity sheets that are attached to this lesson. If you go online, I think it's called Babel 10, and it's got crosswords and all kinds of coloring pages and things for you to work on in the Tower of Babel. So I'm going to make my marshmallow tower, and I'm going to do that online so that you can watch and do it with me. And I'm also going to show you how big I got my Lego tower to be. So I'll see you in a little bit. Bye.